Greetings, members one and all of the Salivation Nation. Scotiabank will pay more than $127 million to settle spoofing and precious metals manipulation claims. Let's explore! This information provided to me by Bama17NC and Chuck and Plata. It's amazing. Members of this community appreciate you guys sending me stories like this. This is new and fresh. Another example of admitted precious metals manipulation from the Bank of Nova Scotia. You may remember I covered recently about the Bank of Nova Scotia, Scotiabank, essentially getting out of the precious metals trading business. And now we have some further information as to why here, as they've agreed to pay this huge settlement amidst the U.S. allegations that the company engaged in spoofing of gold and silver futures contracts and made false statements to the government, according to this article here from Bloomberg. Fascinating indeed. Manipulation is something that I've covered on this channel, but I have a fairly controversial view in terms of the overall precious metals community. And even to this day, even with this furthering evidence, because I've covered other stories like this from JP Morgan, and I do believe that it occurs, have never denied manipulation, but I don't believe that it occurs to the level that most think it does. In other words, manipulation that occurs to keep the prices down with a cabal of sorts from various different entities and banks out there. I don't believe that's happening because it would involve looking at something larger than your own self-interest in terms of the entities involved. And what I have covered and what we're seeing now is just one organization and those in the organization that are doing it, because manipulation can occur when the prices are going up and going down. They're taking advantage of trades to be able to profit, and that is always out of their own self-interest or greed, if you will. But the article goes on here from Bloomberg. As part of the accord, the Bank of Nova Scotia will pay a $17 million fine on the Commodities Futures Trading Commission claims that it dramatically misrepresented the scope of the alleged wrongdoing. The bank made multiple false statements during the CFTC's investigation of a spoofing case that was resolved in 2018 for $800,000, the agency said. The regulator said that the new punishment reflects the Bank of Nova Scotia's lack of cooperation in the earlier probe and actions it took to conceal its misconduct. Entities seeking to cooperate with the CFTC, like all others that interact with the Commission, must tell the truth, James McDonald, the agency's enforcement chief, said in a statement. When entities are not completely truthful, they will be penalized. Bank of Nova Scotia also agreed to a deferred prosecution agreement with the Justice Department tied to criminal charges of attempted price manipulation and wire fraud. Under the agreement, the Toronto-based lender will pay a $60.4 million in fines, forfeiture, and restitution, which will be offset by the CFTC order. The bank also agreed to hire an independent monitor for 3 years. And this is good. This is obviously, if they're going to be out of the precious metals trading business, I wonder what the point of that would be, but maybe for other commodities that they are involved in. Manipulation occurs with every commodity, with everything that's traded. There's manipulation. And this is part of the reason why I believe in having the physical, because the physical, you cannot manipulate it unless you melt it down and recast it and rehypothecate it in that manner. It goes on to say that we understand that in order to maintain the trust of our stakeholders, we must adhere to trading-related regulatory requirements and compliance policies. We are committed to adhering to these standards, the bank said in a statement. So it's interesting to see how that is working. Of course, there's another headline here. It says, if Scotiabank compliance failed to stop gold spoofing, U.S. says. This stuff is going to be going on. They're constantly looking at updating regulations to help stop some of this. But I saw an interview recently with somebody who used to be the head of the organization that talks about this type of stuff, and that they get away with because the technology and the way trades are done is basically circumvents the regulations or gets around them. So regulations have to be updated or whatever, and what have you. But when you have things like high frequency trading, those are areas where you're going to see very quick moves and profit taking, especially when you're talking about spoofing. And you think about it, it makes no sense, especially with how quickly this stuff can happen, for it to really have an effect on the markets where the actual price of gold and silver will go, which is why I believe the natural market forces are much more powerful in the movement of gold and silver. And that's what we're seeing as of late. The markets for gold and silver are reacting to the economic conditions and the situations that we arise, based not only on technical analysis, but also based off of what we're seeing around the world, geopolitically, economically, and those are the factors that have the biggest move, very powerful movers of gold and silver, especially when they talk about it with the strength of the dollar that we've seen wane a bit as of late. Now, will more stories like this come out? Yes. Will I report on them? Sure thing. And but I don't think there's this mass conspiracy of manipulation between all these banks to keep the prices down. And even if there were, how effective is it for they would all get together to talk about this type of stuff? I imagine if they could, they probably would. But my guess is the markets are so complex, even with the technology that's out there, being able to make it occur in such a way for such a long period of time would be very difficult, almost impossible to do. But nonetheless, we know the true value of the gold and silver that we hold in our hands, regardless of what your viewpoint is on it. And so I certainly appreciate the grace that you may show me on this channel, even if you have a differing point of view with regards to manipulation. But fascinating indeed, and I'm glad that it's stories like this certainly do give me some confidence, and it's good news that another entity has been caught and they will have to pay restitution for it. And with more things like this in the headlines, this is going to mean that we're going to hopefully see less manipulation in the future, and it will awake the authorities that will be the Justice Department will investigate. We talk about racketeering charges essentially for spoofing with J.P. Morgan. Well, they have to be a lot more cautious in how they deal, and it must be on the up and up when they make their transactions. So my hope is that in the future we'll see less manipulation going on, because you have to understand that when a story like this breaks and then the prices go down dramatically, like what we saw in the last few days, it's less likely to be because of manipulation, because these big banks are not doing it, because they've been caught. So they have to be careful. So something to think about, no matter what your viewpoint is on manipulation of the markets. But thanks again to members of the community and for sharing information like this with me, and I hope you enjoyed. I'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude to you all for taking the time to watch this video, and encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.